this video, we investigate a key revelation, that reality is fundamentally crafted not by the external, but by our own consciousness. From the visions of George Berkeley in the 18th century to the revolutionary insights of contemporary thinkers like Bernardo Kastrup and Donald Hoffman, this idea has evolved dramatically. As we navigate through the ideas that challenge the very nature of what seems real, prepare to question the conventional, to delve into a world where the observer and the observed are intimately connected. By understanding these concepts, we hope to empower you to actively participate in shaping your own reality, harnessing the transformative power of your consciousness. Thank you for joining us as we explore the relationship between consciousness and reality. In the early 18th century, amidst the hills of Ireland, George Berkeley, born in 1685, challenged the foundations of what we perceive as real. A passionate critic of materialism, Berkeley proposed a radical view. Without a perceiver, objects do not exist in any meaningful way. Consider a simple apple in a market stall. Berkeley would argue that the apple's existence as perceived by us, its color, shape, and texture, is known solely through our sensory experiences. If no one is there to perceive the apple, can we say it exists? Berkeley's answer is a resounding no. To him, the sensory qualities of the apple are not inherent properties of the apple itself, but exist only in the mind of the perceiver. If this sounds similar to the question, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? It's because it is believed that it originates from Berkeley. So what ensures that the apple does not pop in and out of existence? What about the times when no human is perceiving it? Here, Berkeley introduces a divine observer. He posits God as an eternal perceiver, whose omnipresent consciousness ensures that objects continue to exist even when no human is observing them. Berkeley's philosophical inquiry into the nature of reality brings us to a profound implication. The role of the perceiver is not just passive, but fundamentally creative. The world, in its perceivable form, exists in a dance with the minds that observe it. For Berkeley, this interplay could only make sense with God at the center, ensuring universal order and continuity. The observer guarantees that the world remains coherent and stable. Not surprisingly, this view of the universe being a symphony of perceptions orchestrated by the divine is synonymous with many historical beliefs, such as Hinduism or Taoism. He wasn't the only immaterialist we see over time. Nearly half a century later in Königsberg, Prussia, Immanuel Kant was born in 1724. It's very difficult to hear Kant's name and not consider how powerfully he redefined our grasp of reality. His groundbreaking notion, transcendental idealism, sought to bridge the chasm between what is perceived and what exists beyond perception. Kant proposed that our experiences of the world are filtered through a set of innate cognitive structures, categories like causality, space, and time. These are not mere reflections of the world, but are the very conditions that make our experiences possible. The world as we know it, the phenomenal world, is thus a construct of our sensory perceptions and mental categories. We discussed these in more detail in our other video. With all this said, Kant did not deny the existence of a world independent of our perceptions, the noumenal world, which stands as the realm of things in themselves, fundamentally the unknowable and the untouched by our sensory faculties and mental constructs. This acknowledgement of a reality that transcends our perception is what anchors Kant in empirical realism, even as he asserts that our knowledge of that reality is inevitably shaped by our mental faculties. Kant's investigation into the limits of human knowledge brought him to an insightful conclusion about the purpose of knowledge itself. He argued that the ultimate aim of acquiring knowledge is not merely to apprehend the empirical world, but to understand the conditions of possibility for experience and knowledge. This understanding empowers us to navigate the world more effectively, recognizing the limits of what we can know while striving to expand the boundaries of our understanding. Thus, for Kant, the pursuit of knowledge serves a dual purpose. It enables us to operate within the empirical limits of the phenomenal world, while also urging us to ponder and respect the mysteries of the noumenal world, forever reminding us of the depth and richness of reality beyond the reach of our senses and reason. Through his doctrine of transcendental idealism, Kant invites us to view ourselves as both participants in and observers of the world, a dual role that challenges us to question the very nature of reality and our place within it. Moving forward into the early 19th century, we are met with Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel, who was born in Stuttgart, Germany in 1770. Hegel's philosophy is marked by its depth and ambition, seeking to explain the entirety of reality through his dialectical method and the concept of absolute idealism. Hegel's dialectical method is a dynamic process of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. It describes how contradictions inherent in any given state of affairs, that is the thesis, inevitably generate their opposites, that is the antithesis. This leads to a higher state of understanding, this being the synthesis. This process, Hegel argues, is not just a logical tool, but the fundamental way reality unfolds and progresses. At the core of Hegel's thought lies absolute idealism, which posits that all reality is an expression of the absolute spirit, or Geist. This spirit is not a supernatural entity, but the essence of reality itself, manifesting through nature, human history, and ultimately consciousness. This complements his dialogue on the historical development of consciousness, which he explores in his Phenomenology of Spirit. He traces the evolution of human consciousness from basic sensory perception to higher levels of rational and ethical awareness. Each stage in this evolutionary ladder is marked by the dialectical process, reflecting the spirit's journey towards self-realization and freedom. For Hegel, history itself is a rational process where freedom expands as consciousness develops. The march of history is thus not merely a series of events, but a purposive narrative driven by Geist, striving towards a greater realization of freedom and self-awareness. Hegel sees the absolute spirit as a rational process unfolding through and understood by its dialectical development. Although it is outside the scope of this video, we can see how in Hegel's philosophy, language emerges not merely as a tool for communication, but as a vital medium through which the absolute spirit manifests and realizes itself. It is essential for self-consciousness, allowing thoughts to be externalized and reflected upon, thereby advancing the dialectical process of knowledge. As a vehicle of culture and history, language transmits the achievements and consciousness of a culture, shaping the collective mind in the unfolding of the absolute. Through articulating reason and structuring societal norms, language actively shapes human cognition and societal structures. Thus, in Hegel's vision, language is fundamental in bridging individual consciousness with universal reason. We'll be exploring this further in other videos, so please subscribe and hit that alert button. A key idea Hegel is known for in the modern world is the notion of the unity of subject and object. Hegel proposed that the highest level of philosophical understanding is transcending the separation between the knower, that is, the subject, and the known, that is, the object. In this state, the mind fully recognizes that what it perceives as external reality is fundamentally its own content, thus achieving what Hegel calls absolute knowledge. He best expressed this when he said in his book Phenomenology of Spirit, self-consciousness exists in and for itself when and by the fact that it so exists for another. That is, it exists only in being acknowledged. In conclusion, Hegel's philosophy offers a comprehensive framework in which every aspect of reality, natural, human, and spiritual, are intimately connected into a single narrative of progress and realization. His vision of absolute idealism reveals a world where the mind and reality are not separate, but are united in the ongoing dialectical process of becoming. These challenges to the physicalist worldview still dominate our contemporary world. Bernardo Kastrup stands out with his persuasive critique and alternative philosophy known as analytic idealism. This framework is not just a theoretical construct, but is grounded in empirical evidence and philosophical rigor. Analytic idealism posits that consciousness is the fundamental essence of existence, contrary to physicalism, which asserts that consciousness emerges from physical processes. Kastrup argues that all physical entities and phenomena are manifestations within consciousness. This perspective is supported by empirical observations from quantum mechanics, where phenomena like wave function collapse suggest that particles do not have definitive states independent of observation. Diving deeper into Kastrup's philosophy, we encounter the concept of metaphorical schizophrenia. This metaphor is used to explain how the universal consciousness, or mind at large, experiences itself subjectively through multiple centers of awareness. Much like in dissociative identity disorder, where a single individual may manifest multiple distinct personalities, the universe's single consciousness manifests as myriad individual entities, each with its own subjective experience. In this framework, the idea of mind as the ground of being is central. Kastrup suggests that all of existence is essentially mental. Every tree, rock, and creature we perceive is an expression of the universal mind's internal experiences. This radical viewpoint turns the conventional materialist view on its head, proposing instead that the universe itself is akin to a dream or shared hallucination, sculpted not out of matter but out of mind. Through this, Kastrup challenges our understanding of consciousness, urging us to reconsider our most fundamental assumptions about what is real and how we come to know it. It's difficult to discuss the fundamental assumptions about reality without encountering Donald Hoffman. Donald Hoffman is a pioneering cognitive psychologist whose interface theory of perception challenges our traditional views of reality. His theories provide a radical new perspective on how we perceive. Using one of Hoffman's analogies, he suggests that our perceptions of the world, trees, cars, stars, are akin to icons on a desktop interface. These icons don't represent the files themselves, but provide a simplified and useful way to interact with them without revealing the complexity of the computer's software. Similarly, the objects we perceive in our world are not depictions of an objective reality, but rather user-friendly interfaces that hide the true complexity of whatever lies beyond. This interface is shaped by evolutionary pressures, which favor fitness over truthful perception. According to Hoffman, our ancestors who saw reality as it is were outcompeted by those who perceived only what was necessary for survival, such as food or reproduction. This theory is supported by numerous simulations using evolutionary game theory, showing that perceptions tailored for fitness lead to greater reproductive success. Hoffman extends his theory to include multiple conscious agents, proposing that what we perceive as a shared physical world is actually a network of intersecting personal realities, created and sustained by consensual agreements among overlapping sets of conscious agents. Each agent processes their own interface, but through interaction, they create a consensus reality that allows them to communicate and cooperate. This further feeds into Hoffman's notion of a consciousness-first reality, suggesting that everything we perceive is part of a subjective framework built by and for consciousness. Again, this inevitably challenges the traditional view that physical spacetime is a fundamental structure of the universe. Instead, Hoffman argues that spacetime is merely a secondary construct derived from deeper, non-spatial, non-temporal interactions among conscious agents. Currently, Hoffman is working on a formal theory to map outside spacetime. His work seeks to uncover the pre-spacetime realm from which spacetime is emergent. This could revolutionize our understanding of the universe, much like the theories of quantum mechanics reshaped physics in the 20th century. As we conclude, let's reflect on the implications of these concepts and what they mean for our understanding of the world. We can see how, throughout history, intellectuals have proposed that reality is not external, but fundamentally made of consciousness itself. This notion has evolved from philosophical speculation to a hypothesis increasingly explored through empirical science. Today, with advances in quantum mechanics and cognitive science, we stand on the brink of employing sophisticated technology and rigorous scientific methods to explore how consciousness interacts with and perhaps even constructs the physical world. These findings could revolutionize our understanding of everything from the universe's fundamental structure to the nature of human perception. It is an exciting time, one where the age-old philosophical debates may find empirical answers. We thank you for joining us on this philosophical journey. Continue to question, explore, and wonder.